Welcome to Dub Nation, the official show of the Utah Warriors of Major League Rugby. I am Jarom Jordan alongside Banksy, of course, here at Zions Bank Stadium and the facilities in front of the Utah-built mural. Banksy, this thing is legit.
What an incredible piece of artwork, touching on the past, present, and future of all things Utah-built, and right here in the Warriors locker room as well.
We will talk about what went into this, the unveiling with Kimball Kjar coming up, which brings us to what's on the show today. New England, what a win for Utah on Friday. We'll recap it. We'll recap MLR Round 7, preview the big game with Houston and MLR Round 8. Kimball Kjar will join us, of course, to talk about the mural and everything going on with MLR and the Warriors and the World Cup coming up in 2031. Plus, hey, the Warriors Selects played, and we've got the schedule now. But first, let's recap the New England game. 3-3 through 10 minutes. And then in the 17th minute, great take by Connor McLeod to get to within 1 meter. Then Onehunga Havili scores again, 10-3 Warriors.
Great physicality from Havili. He was incredible for all 80 minutes.
26th minute, Joe Mano scores a spectacular try. This dude does not know how to not score now. It is an unbelievable run.
And he always does it in spectacular fashion as well. It's what you want your finishers to do on the outside. Give the fans what they want and score tries. He's now the leading try scorer in all of MLR.
7 on the year, 15-10 at this point. 34th minute, yellow card on Connor Keys that led to a Mika Kruse try assisted by Joe Hodgson on a lightning-fast crash ball, 2017 Utah.
And it was a great build-up. They knew everybody would be keying in on Paul Lasike, and Mika Kruse came in on a screaming line, almost untouched for the finish.
Dots it down quick as he ran it in. 60th minute, Joe Hodgson, penalty goal to cut it to 1, 24-23. That would be important because in the 76th minute, New England hit with a penalty 5 meters away. Utah opts for a penalty goal. They didn't kick any of the first 4 games. They're kicking a lot now, and Joe Hodgson nails it off the left post and in for the win.
Well, you knew the pressure in this game may have really built up to who was going to have possession of the ball in those final minutes. A crucial penalty win for the Warriors, and then the trusty Buddha Hodgson to close it out.
And what a win for Utah, 26-24, taking down the Eastern Conference leaders, New England Free Jacks. Some of the stats look like this: 3 tries apiece. The conversions go the way of New England, but ultimately it's that penalty goal and 3 for 3 from Joe Hodgson, which put Utah over the edge. Scrums were tremendous from both teams, and just 3 penalties for Utah was crucial.
And it was really all about heart, the way these two teams battled and went at it. This was a slugfest. Neither team backed down. It was going to take all 80 minutes to beat the best team in the East, and our boys pulled it off.
Yes, they did. A couple of game notes in this one. Utah, 2-game win streak, seeking the second third-game win streak in team history. First since 2021. Joe Mano, 14 tries in the last 13 games. You mentioned it, Banksy. He leads MLR. And Utah now #1 in meters gained, offloads, clean breaks, second in tackles, defensive breakdown arrivals. Utah playing good rugby right now. There were some notable injuries, though, in this game. Joe Mano, Jamie Lane, Paul Lasike, all left injured.
And, you know, all the best to those guys. I know a couple of them on concussion protocols, as well as some other Warriors. So we'll see them come back and hopefully join the likes of some of their playmakers who made the roster for the MLR All First 15 this week, with a big shout out to Onehunga Havili, who earned it with a full pull 80 minutes. Connor McLeod at scrum half. He's been an absolute machine. His work rate is incredible. 57 meters run, 3 defenders beaten, and then, of course, Joel Hodgson at fly half. When you kick the game winner, you get first team nod.
100%. Okay, round 7 recap and standings. San Diego beats Old Glory DC 48-26. Seattle wins on the road at NOLA, who snapped that 3-game win streak for the gold, 36-35. That one close as well. New York beat Rugby ATL 31-20. Houston takes down Chicago 38-21. And Dallas gets its first ever win, 14-11 versus a struggling Toronto side.
You know, Toronto not really fronting their best side right now. That team decimated by injuries, but you got to give credit to Dallas. You got to play the guys you got on the field, and they got it done. That franchise should celebrate in a pretty big way.
Hey, when you win, celebrate, baby. Okay, standings, Western Conference, Seattle and San Diego tied at 26 apiece. Houston right there at 25, Utah at 18. Huge matchup between those two, which we will preview in a moment. Dallas and Chicago round out the West. In the East, New England still atop the East. Nice win for Utah. NOLA Gold right there, New York, and really West heavy in the MLR standings so far. If Utah was in the East, it would be in second place.
Well, and NOLA Gold fill that spot right now, and I don't think anybody's sleeping on the boys from the Big Easy right now. That's a tough, physical team playing really good rugby, so credit to those guys in the Eastern Conference. If you want to be in the stands with your family for the best home field advantage in Major League Rugby, Family Night will be on as the Seattle Seawolves come to town. Make sure you get your family 4-packs, a minimum of 4 seats, to be able to get the discount that is available now at warriorsrugby.com. Make sure you're in the stands. Make sure your family gets to experience the greatest sport on the planet with Major League Rugby as the Utah Warriors take on Seattle. Get your Family Night tickets now with a minimum of 4 tickets purchased at warriorsrugby.com.
Eastern #1 went down in New England. Perhaps Western #1 goes down next week in Seattle, who's the only undefeated team in the league. Huge game next week. Okay, let's preview the matchup with Houston. 2 of the top 4 teams in the West. SaberCats have played some great rugby so far at 5-1, 25 points. Saturday, April 8th at 6 Mountain. You can watch it on KMYU, stream it on KSLSports.com and the Rugby Network. And we've got the radio call on ESPN 700, 960, and 92.1. Houston's been really good this year. The only loss is at Seattle, 24-12. They put up 30-plus in 5 of the 6. They've won all those games when they've scored 30-plus. Put up 6 tries on Sunday, all different scores against Chicago. Houston won the last meeting in Aviva Stadium last year, 31-27. Series tied at 4-4. Both teams tied for the most tries in MLR, so this could be a high-scoring one.
I would expect it to be a high-scoring one. It always is with Houston, and they can score tries from anywhere, so it's going to take a full 80 minutes of defensive work as well as getting the ball into playmakers' hands and playing from sideline to sideline, because this Houston team can stretch you out across all portions of the field. So tactically, this Warriors team is going to have to be incredibly disciplined to come away with a dub.
Houston will stay ahead of Utah in the standings with points regardless of what happens. But if Utah can beat New England and Houston back-to-back and have a 3-game win streak, we are talking about one of the best teams in MLR at the moment. That could be a lot of fun. A couple of players to watch for Houston. David Kutza, the fly half, 14 conversions made. That's the most in MLR. Don McKenna, outside center, had a tremendous game on Sunday against Chicago. Jerry Labiskakny, a winger, he has a team high in meters gained with 348. And Nate Den Hout, we've seen him the last couple of years at Locke. He's a physical dude, first and second defending arrivals. He's second in the league.
And his work rate is unbelievable as a second rower, kind of that prototypical enforcer in and around the breakdown. So the Warriors are going to have to be accountable at the ruck, because on those defensive rucks, he's going to challenge you physically and try and get the ball into the hands of guys like Don McKenna, who can play really well in space.
Okay, Utah and Houston coming up Saturday at 6 o'clock. We will talk to you on the radio for that one. You can watch or stream it as well. Okay, round 8 in the MLR. Let's preview what's coming up. Chicago at New England at noon. All Times Mountain here. New York at Toronto. Old Glory DC at Rugby ATL. We mentioned Utah and Houston. And then Seattle at San Diego. That might be the game of the week.
That's got to be the one everybody's going to have circled. The traditional rivals there for the top 1 and 2 spots in the Western Conference, and, you know, the perennial challengers for the Shield in Seattle. So that's for really bragging rights through the first half of the season and for the #1 spot in the West.
And it's competitive, even though we're just looking at round 8.
If you want to get your kids involved in the Junior Warriors program, signups are available right now for pre-game clinics with our very own Ashley Burge. Go to junior.warriorsrugby.com and sign up now. You get a t-shirt, 2 tickets to the game, access to coaches, players, and some of the most fun your kids can have learning the game of rugby from some of the most incredible players on the planet. junior.warriorsrugby.com now to sign up.
All right, we now welcome to the program the CEO of the Utah Warriors, Kimball Kjar, who joins us on the program. What's up, Kimball? How you doing?
Hey, how are you guys?
Great. When the Warriors win 2 games in a row, everything's good, right?
Yeah, listen, the record where we're at right now, I mean, listen, we got some good momentum. Hard-fought win last week. But, yeah, we're riding things high right now, so it's pretty exciting.
Okay, this mural is pretty cool. We've been standing here the whole time, obviously, but there was a big unveiling on Friday, which was pretty cool ahead of the game. This is awesome. It touches all the beats, or a lot of them, I guess, of what Utah means and is and who represents it.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Lewis, a local graffiti artist, is the guy that we had come in and do this for us. But really, the whole Utah built identity is something that we've been trying to instill in the organization, with not only from the players but to the staff, in terms of something that makes our brand, our community unique. And we felt like the Warriors really encapsulated all of these different core tenets, like dedication, being a pioneer, being innovative, like we see in all of the amazing tech companies that are coming out of the state of Utah. The humility of people like Gail Halverson, that was the candy bomber that everyone in Utah knows about. But The one thing that really kind of stands out to me, as always, is sort of the story of the city of Iosepa. We did a jersey homage to them about 2-3 years ago. And just the story of that Polynesian community coming to the state of Utah from the Hawaiian Islands and all sorts of other Polynesian islands to come live, dare I say, in a godforsaken desert where, there was hardly any way for them to eke out an existence, and just with the challenges that they overcame to make a city that not only flourished but was thriving at its heyday, and to really have that as sort of the foundation and cornerstone of our amazing Polynesian community here within the state of Utah, going back to the early 1890s, is something that is a part of our character. So that's that type of dedication and all of these different elements that, as we stand here in this space where the players come and spend a lot of time, we want them to consistently be reminded of those people who have gone on before to make Utah amazing in what it is, and hopefully that continues to be emboldened and embodied with what the players do on their daily actions and what they do on and off the field, because we want them to not only leave a similar legacy of what the Warriors are able to do, but more importantly what they can do individually.
When it feels like it's an expansion on the 4 pillars, the 4 stripes that we wear on just about all of our kit, right? And those core values of the club. And this is really just more of that same attitude, and really the foundation of not just the rugby team in this community, but the community as a rallying point around the rugby team.
Well,
right?
and I've kind of said this before, and this kind of sometimes sounds a little bit, maybe a little bit unique to say it this way, but Utah deserves the Warriors. And I would kind of say vice versa, because the Warriors is an embodiment of what it means to be Utah. Like our story and how we were founded, how we were created. And, it's very much an entrepreneurial story where we had to kind of figure it out. We didn't know what to do and how to build a professional team. We didn't have the deep pockets of these billionaires like other professional sports teams. And we actually love and honor that. And that's just no different from what any Utahn has experienced in their own life. They've just kind of had to come and figure it out. The pioneers, when they came here, there was no water. They had to figure out how they were going to build buildings. The people from Iosepa and the Olympics, we just kind of had to figure it out. We have this identity that is very unique. There's it's not really so much as a chip on our shoulder and an underdog mentality as it is that we just have a brand of being Utah. Whether you've come to live here and are an adopted son or daughter of this state, or you were born here, that is empowered by just being that Utah-built mentality. And that's something we want our players to embody in everything that they do.
There's a quote that reminds me of one of the early pioneers. He said that miracles happen so often in Utah because we pray like hell for miracles and then we work like hell to make them happen.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of surrounds the entire Warriors mentality and how this club came to be.
Yeah, 100%.
And you explored a lot of sort of that story, as you mentioned, of what it's taken to get to this point. On LinkedIn, we recommend people check that out if you haven't read it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Just see like your parents took out a second mortgage. You had some real personal sacrifice, and then a lot of people have sacrificed to get to this point.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but that's what being Utah built is. Like we sacrifice, we do whatever we can to make sure that vision is attained. Like you just said, Banksy. I mean, we work like hell, but we also pray like hell. To make sure that we can achieve what we need to achieve and be successful. So that's where we're at. That's what being Utah built is all about.
And that's been around the Warriors now. And now the Warriors and MLR look ahead to 2031 with the Men's World Cup, the Women's World Cup coming in 33. So I know MLR and the Warriors were involved in kind of, hey, let's get this here. Now that it's coming, what's the team and the league doing to sort of prepare for the 2031 World Cup?
A lot. A whole lot. I mean, really, you're looking at everything from the time that a young player, a boy or a girl, touches or sees a rugby ball at the age of 5 or 6. Heck, we've even had some kids that have come in and done some of our junior Warriors clinics that are 3 and 4, and it's just amazing to see these little kids run around with a ball that's like 3/4 of their body, right? But to all the way up to the top end professional level, and I think it really needs to be heard and said within our rugby community that it's the old what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Is what's good for the MLR is good for USA Rugby and Rugby Canada, right? And I would say the inverse. Like, so what is good for those entities and what they're doing is also going to be good for the MLR. And I think what we're doing right now in our conversations with those groups, those national governing bodies, as well as World Rugby, and the other kind of stakeholders within this hemisphere, is helping build that alignment of our goals, our plans, the competitions, and what we can do to bring more kids age 6 on up to be able to come through the pathway. You look back at what the MLR has done. We've brought in over, we've introduced the sport of rugby to over 200,000 kids since 2018. Just last year, we measured about 50,000. Our goal by 2031 is to have introduced the sport of rugby to over 5 million kids as a league. Obviously, here in Utah, we want to be a big contributor and a big piece of that. So that's part of our partnership with the Salt Lake County Parks and Rec, the other Parks and Recs divisions, all the way down from St. George that we just started this year up to I think Davis County is one of our newest Parks and Recs partners. So to be able to bring that Junior Warriors program and to do more of those types of opportunities and initiatives to introduce the sport of rugby to more kids is humongous. But the really telltale fact here is you have so many guys and I would even say gals that are being introduced to the sport, but near the top end, since we don't have a women's team just yet or a women's league just yet. We have an opportunity to give a professional training and daily training environment to over, I would measure about 250 to 300 athletes that are, as of 5 years ago, they weren't playing and training in a daily professional training environment. Now those 250 to 300 athletes can be drawn upon by Rugby Canada or USA Rugby. We've had over 30 MLR players that have first signed with the MLR that have been added to the U.S. player pool. You had over 40 players that were already in the U.S. player pool before the MLR started. So you've got, over 75 some odd athletes that are being influenced and supported in their professional endeavors within USA Rugby's ecosystem that I think can't be underscored enough, right? We're really doing a lot to help provide the highest level competition and a daily training environment for all of these guys that candidly they weren't professional before, but now they are, and that's only going to be good for USA Rugby. Going back to when I played, it was try to figure out how to pay my bills, support my wife and my daughter, and quote unquote rip the tie off at the end of the day, go train, and then on the weekends go play rugby and just again try to figure it out. But now these guys can make a career of this and they can focus on this, and it can be a focused effort in what they're doing.
When the difference between the way it was for you, expected to still go perform in a World Cup while managing all of that, to players now like we have Lance Williams, guys like Mika Cruze, Bailey Wilson, all of these guys that are USA Eagle eligible. And I think 6 out of 10 players on the Utah Warriors roster are USA Eagle eligible that didn't exist 6 years ago. When we talk about the build up to getting players through our pathway, through the youth programs, and you've been a very vocal proponent about building that pathway through those local clubs.
Well, and listen, I think it's a competitive advantage of ours that we just have to acknowledge here in Utah that we have compared to other MLR teams. We have a community that is so strong and so powerful when it comes to the game of rugby that you can't replicate in other communities. And so we've got to be able to take advantage of that. But more importantly, it ends up adding value to what we're trying to do as a program in the long term. If you look at, anecdotally, you look at Japanese rugby in the early 2000s, when they first began to really make some headway in their professional setup, there were teams that went out and just bought players. They, in principle, decided that they were just going to spend money and then they were going to just have a successful team. Well, they had success, but after a few years, those players left. There wasn't anybody to backfill, right? You're seeing a lot of the same thing. If you kind of think about it, you're seeing a lot of the same thing right now with the MLR. There's certain teams that are going out and trying to buy success and get the short-term, opportunities, but they're not really backfilling and developing the pathway that's going to end up being those players that are going to come in and take over and really be, the domestic cornerstones for a successful program, every year. And that's part of, the reason why I love and appreciate what we've been able to do with Stade Toulousain and that partnership. If you look at their pathway, not only do they have a coach that goes from the top end that coaches every single level that's connected to the level above, so they've got this ladder of development that's so unique to the rest of the top 14, but most of their top end players that are playing, albeit most of the French national team is Toulouse. They've had, I think, 11 players in one of the games. They averaged 9 or 10.
That's incredible. Throughout
Throughout the Six Nations. Most of those guys came through their development system. Romain Ntamak, he's the son of Emile Ntamak that played for Toulouse, right? So all these kids have kind of come up through this system, and we want to do the same. We feel like it's in our best interests to give back to the community that has, basically given us the opportunity to create the Warriors, but more importantly, I'll be lying if I didn't say this, it's not a sound business decision for us to cost effectively be able to source talent rather than having to look all the time overseas when you're having to go out and buy, big name players that cost you a lot of money. And it's just not really practical for you in the long term.
And it's a question of sustainability. We've had this conversation with local collegiate athletics of transfer portal versus kids out of high school and what kind of mix is probably proper for the short term, long term. By the way, regarding Toulouse, we're going to have an exhibition in the fall. I know there's been a conversation there and some announcement.
TBD.
TBD?
Yeah,
Okay. We've seen a few rumblings.
That may be a little exclusive leak that you heard here first on Dub Nation.
There'll be some, let's just put it this way, there's going to be some exciting news that'll be coming out later this month.
Awesome. That's exciting. Well, certainly the team is doing well, as you mentioned. 4-2, 2 wins in a row, a nice dramatic win on Friday, and then a big game at Houston coming up Saturday. How are you feeling about the team this year?
I love this team. I mean, I've said that every year. I love every single one of our guys. I love the roster that we have. I love the work that Brandon Sparks, Greg Cooper, Sean, Robbie, everyone, Ian Gibbett, like top to bottom. And I'm obviously forgetting a number of names there because it takes a whole crew to be able to put something successful together. But, I've been really, really impressed with what this staff has been able to put together and the adjustments that they've made week in and week out. That last game against New England, that was a heavyweight bout. Two really good teams that were just swinging at each other. If you follow some of the stats, we were up, they were up, we were up. That you just kind of go through that game, and it was just a bit of I don't want to say a roller coaster, but it was, nail biting there at the end, especially, right? So, but physically, that game really demonstrated what this game can provide, and the excitement and the energy and all the things that kind of go along with it. So, listen, I think where this team is currently positioned is exciting. It really, now we're kind of into the what I would kind of qualify as the dog days of the season, where you're now beginning to have guys rack up lots of minutes, and they're beginning to rack up potential injuries, and we've had a couple that we're having to keep an eye on. But it's just one of those things that I think the culture that we've built and what Coops has really tried to drive home with these guys is it's just next man up. And these guys have kind of been training and working hard, and they've been waiting in the wings. And there's going to be a lot of guys that they're going to get their opportunity now in the coming weeks. So every amount of trust and excitement for what the weeks ahead. 2 very big weeks with Houston and Seattle at home, but with the roster that we put together from the top end guys that have kind of been carrying the water through these first 5, 6, 7 games, to now the guys that we're going to be having to kind of look at and say, all right, next man up. You got to carry the water. You got to be Utah built. It's going to be exciting to see what those kids do.
Well, we appreciate the time. Thanks for coming in. And, we kind of came to you and your offices, essentially. This is super cool. The team's doing great. Congrats on all the success so far.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys taking the time to come on down here. And, this mural is something that is going to continue to kind of hopefully inspire our players, our staff, every day that they come in here and they can see it and they can be, they can kind of look to it and say, all right, this is what it takes to really build something sustainable, successful, and hopefully we can begin to see the results of not only the culture that we're building, but also more importantly, the community and the success on the field.
And room to grow. We got other blank walls going down.
There are other walls.
We can
That's
keep
exactly
expanding
right.
on Utah builds.
I think we'll have some fat heads of Jarom, another fat head of Banksy, and that'll really start inspiring the guys.
Emphasis on fat.
That wasn't a company. That wasn't a company name. That was an
No, it was.
adjective.
Yeah, I was trying to stick with the brand name, but you guys take it how you need to.
Kimball, thank you so much for your time,
I
brother.
appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
If you want to get the best looking kit in all of Major League Rugby, there is no close second for that. Make sure you rock the 4 stripes and the red and black to support your Utah Warriors. Check out everything that's available in the team store now at shop.warriorsrugby.com.
Well, we've told you about the selects before, but they actually played last week, and they beat Park City Haggis 68-45. Real shootout in that one. Good to see the boys, who are sort of a AAA team, if you will, training and ready to be called up to the main MLR team. They got a nice win, and they've got a nice schedule coming up as well.
It was really great to see that select side get a run out. A lot of those guys have been chomping for minutes. It hurts a little bit to see them do it against my home club, but it really was the kickoff to what was a great weekend of rugby here, and more to come with that select side. If you want to check out the schedule, it is available so you can see them with curtain raisers, essentially, against Seattle, Chicago, Rhino Rugby, All Marines and Navy team, as well as Roots Rugby. Go to warriorsrugby.com if you want to check out the whole schedule.
Can't wait to see those guys. I know some of the rookies, especially that Utah drafted, are getting some quality minutes there, which is awesome. Okay, that'll do it for us. Like and share this episode of Dub Nation, and follow the Utah Warriors on social media. We'll talk to you Saturday at 6 Mountain for the Warriors at Houston SaberCats. On KMYU, KSLSports.com, the Rugby Network. We've got the radio call on ESPN 700, 960 and 92.1. Our thanks to today's guests, Kimball Kjar. Our thanks to Hannah Miner and Mason Benson for producing this and shooting this as well. And for Banksy, I'm Jarom Jordan. We'll see you Saturday. Go Warriors.